Good morning, boys and girls of the internet. Today is Saturday, October 6th, 2018. We vlog number 277, I think. 278, I forget. And here's my quick review of Venom. We went to go see it today, or earlier today, I should say. And it's pretty decent. It's not as bad as I thought it would be. However, I will say right away that the movie would have benefited greatly had it been rated R. Um, it not being rated R, you could tell they had to do a couple scenes that were supposed to be violent, and they had to kind of cut away for things. And I think it would have benefited a lot. You see from movies like Deadpool that when they're not restrained by the ratings, they can go all out and pretty much do what they want. Um, in this movie, you could tell that they were holding back, and it was probably frustrating for them that they did have to hold back to maintain a PG-13 rating. And for a movie like Venom, where you have this giant monster of Venom who is an anti-hero who's literally biting heads off people. Okay, he only does like 3 times in the movie, but that's what he's supposed to be doing, in these scenes. Um, it's like it kind of cuts the believability of how violent Venom really is when you don't see it. Now, granted, in the movie, there are some pretty good scenes of action where Venom does look really good. I had a couple of misgivings when I first saw Venom. I was like, okay, maybe he looks a little bit too plasticky, too shiny, but then I was thinking, second thought, if they made him more matte and non-reflective, it would just not look right on film, should I say. It's all CG, but had they textured him looking a little flatter, he look boring, and you need to see that shininess and the rippling of his texture and the veins on the shininess and stuff. You need to see that. So it's better to have him a little bit more shiny and reflective the way he is. Now, most of the good scenes in the movie, unfortunately, were in the trailers. So there was a couple of scenes that they kind of hinted to in the trailers that you saw more of, but you know, unfortunately, movies do this a lot. They tend to put all the best scenes in the trailers. So once you're just kind of like waiting to get to them. There were a couple of surprising scenes, such as the different people who get to wear the Venom symbiote. That was kind of funny. That was kind of interesting to see. A couple of little quips about the movie that I wasn't too crazy of. Tom Hardy's portrayal of Eddie Brock, when he's just like being normal before he runs into Venom, and even after, but before, like, he plays him kind of weird. He's a little quirky and he has a little mousy, scratchy voice that, I don't know, it just doesn't fit the character, I don't think. The way he carries himself, he's always kind of like hunched over forward, and he looks like a nervous little, he doesn't look confident. And maybe that's what he was going for the character, but it just didn't seem Eddie Brock to me. There was a little callback to him mentioning like he came from New York, which of course he did, because he grew up in New York City where Spider-Man's at. They never mentioned Spider-Man by name. They never mentioned anything like that. There wasn't any reference to that, so good thing or bad thing, you decide that. That being said, for the most part, I do like the interactions between Eddie Brock and the symbiote. It was like when he was first starting to infect him, get into him. He was like talking to him in his head. Those scenes were kind of funny. But there was a couple parts where he kind of goes a little nutty, when he's getting infected. He goes to like go talk to his girlfriend, and he's going a million miles the Venom character's in his head, and he feels hot, and he like, oh, you have to cool down, and he doesn't. It's weird. He doesn't want to eat food that's like warm or like dead food. He's like, oh, dead food, because apparently the Venom symbiote that needs to eat, and like, so they go like, eat like a live lobster or something. Like, it's weird. He goes in like a lobster tank at this restaurant. It's pretty funny, and that's some scenes like that are kind of weird. The villain in this movie, he's your generic, oh, I'm ahead of a giant, science lab, and I'm evil. For what reasons? I don't know. They try to kind of give him a motivation that he's trying to do this for humanity. Whatever he's doing, he wants to, he's in his mind. Humanity is at its like evolutional limit, and we need to do something else to move beyond so we can leave Earth or something. And so he's thinking he's doing this for humanity. So they're trying to give him a positive moral standpoint. Like the old saying says, like, the best villains are villains who don't think they're bad guys. They think they're doing good things. This guy, he's kind of like a cookie cutter of that. So he's kind of generic. Now, there is another symbiote character in this movie that Venom does fight. I don't know if maybe it's because we were sitting too close to the screen. We were like third row from the screen. But I think some of the action scenes were a little bit too close up that it's hard to tell what was going on. Maybe sitting further back would have helped with that. I don't know. But let me know, if you've seen it from further back. Does that seem apparent to you? Like, if things are too hard to follow. Like I said, there were some cool action scenes. Overall, though, a lot of the characters are kind of forgettable. This movie's not as bad as I thought it would be, but it's not the greatest. Of course, not the greatest superhero movie. There's some parts of it I'm gonna forget about. There's some parts I'm gonna remember. Like, there's a part where he was fighting off a bunch of SWAT guys. That part was cool because I liked, the lighting. I liked the smoke. I like the effects in that scene. The action was pretty good, fast paced. But again, there's a lot of other parts that I was like, meh. So this movie's mediocre at best. If you're a big fan of Venom, you might really hate this movie, or you might just dig it. Me, I'm kind of like neutral. Venom's cool and all, but he's not like my favorite character ever. But overall, I kind of dug it. It was pretty neat. Yeah. Will I buy this movie on Blu-ray or something when it comes out? Maybe. I had heard that there was a lot of extra scenes in this movie that were cut, or a lot of story that was missing, or like they didn't shoot, or because it did feel like there was a couple parts missing. That being said, if they do bring out like an extended cut, that might fill in some gaps in the movie. Maybe that would be cool. I don't know. Overall, though, again, mediocre movie. Don't rush to go see it, but if you really have to see it, go ahead. My advice would be wait for the dollar movie or a budget showing of it. It's a good popcorn flick. Maybe not something I'll bring kids to. It's not a kids movie, even though it's PG-13. Should be rated R. God damn it. Then they did kind of go for a little bit. They tried to put some scenes of humor into it because they saw it worked for Deadpool, but it didn't. Some scenes were kind of funny. Some of the things were kind of all right, but when you had tried to put the comedy scenes in with like this like nervous, mousy Eddie Brock, that kind of like threw me off. I'm like, all right. What Venom just said was kind of funny, but here I have this Eddie Brock that just kind of killed it. It just flat killed the joke, whatever that was going on. And it's like, all right. So I don't know what they were going for there. So I think that's it for my quick review of Venom. If you've seen it by now, let me know what you think. See if you liked it or not, or if you hated it. I don't know. Again, it was better than I expected, but and wasn't expecting much anyway. So I guess that's all I got to say about that. So talk to y'all later. Have a good day. I love you.